Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah. I'm an account-based marketing specialist at Drift. I actually just started December 1st in this role. Previously, I was a sales development rep under Mike for about a year, a little bit over a year, in the enterprise space. So, been working with Mike for a while. Definitely used a lot of email templates in my past, so I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that. If you want to go, Mike.
Yep, Mike Iannuzzi here. I am the Director of Sales Development over at Drift. And if you guys aren't familiar with Drift, Drift is the Conversational Cloud leader when it comes to chat, AI, video, all things conversational marketing. And we really help grow pipeline, accelerate revenue, and reduce friction for customers and potential customers. So really excited to chat today about emails because that's something that all of us do. My team sends thousands of emails, and I'm sure everyone tuning in uses emails as a critical component to their prospecting and deal management strategy. So we can jump into the agenda if you want to go to the next slide. So today we're going to talk about emails role in sales for 2023. We're going to talk about how to write personal emails, personalized emails that actually feel personalized, and how to really kind of use email to multi-thread your sales cycle. There's a lot of noise in emails these days. I mean, if any business leader probably receives anywhere from 50 to 100 kind of sales emails per week. And I think if we use some of the practices we talk about today, you're more likely to break through the noise and get a response and get a conversation going. So really looking forward to talk through this. We can go to the next slide. So we released a State of Conversations report for 2022, and we found that email continues to be the most popular channel for sales. It is the #1 way people like to communicate. It might not be the most effective, but it's right up there neck and neck, I would say, with cold calling. If you look at how people want to be sold to, it's really over the phone, over Zoom. But all of that really starts with communication over email, and we're leaning into that more and more. We've seen that revenue teams have crowned email as the most popular channel to communicate with businesses, which means now it's really hard to catch your buyer's eye through email. And the goal today is to walk away with some strategies to really understand how we might be able to do that. So we can jump to the next slide and we'll dive in right away. So we're talking about the email plays here. So we're going to start right off talking about the customer pain point play. This is huge. For me, this really digs into the customer's pain point. It's a great way to bring up a problem that you solve and a potential solution to the prospect's attention, right? So by addressing their pain points, you're showing how their business can provide instant value to their bottom line. So when I think about kind of defining this play, I really think back to things that I learned from like the challenger sale, challenger customer, about knowing the prospect's business better than they do, or at least trying to articulate that. Do your research, know their competitors. And we're going to talk about the competitive play here at the end, but think not only about the business pains that they're trying to solve, but the personal persona specific pains that you're trying to solve, right? Review internal resources that you have that get you up to speed on like what personas care about, what their challenges are, or do some research on your own. Reach out to people in your network and understand what are some of the pain points that are relevant to the business that you're prospecting and the individual that you're prospecting to. And I think now it would be crazy for us not to acknowledge kind of how the economy is shifting the way that we sell, right? CFOs are becoming CEOs. They're having a lot of insight when it comes to actually discussing what deals are going to move forward that companies are assessing different types of solutions. And it really is important to understand how to communicate to the pain point and the solution to that pain and how your company can help them solve that. So let's go ahead and jump to the next slide and we'll look at like an example of this. And then I'm going to pass to Hannah in just a second, just to kind of talk through how this has worked for her in the past. So if we look at this kind of email template, right? This email is trying to communicate that the SDR, at least trying to book this meeting, or salesperson, it could be interchangeable, essentially used video. And actually they're using Drift video right now in this example to walk the prospect through one of the pains or challenges that we're trying to solve for them, right? So using video, I think, is really, really compelling. And it's helping break through the noise. It also humanizes you in your prospecting process, right? If you've got a bunch of emails where everybody's communicating over text, they kind of all get lumped together and most of the time get ignored. We know that. But if you have a video in there, right, it's definitely more human. It has a different feel to it, and it is disruptive in a very, very positive way. And it's incredible to see the response rates on video. But if we shift back and think about the pain point that we talked about here, basically the SDR in this talks about how they're walking through and having to fill out a form, and it takes a long time, right? This can be a challenge. So we're acknowledging the pain point that a person goes through to even make a request or start to have a conversation with sales, right? Not only are we adding in here kind of like that pain point, but we're using social proof in this message to help kind of make it a little bit softer and really, really make the message kind of come through that, like, look, we understand that there's a pain point or challenge. We're working with other companies similar to yours, and we'd love a few minutes to get on a call and talk about how we could present a possible solution. Now, before I pass to Hannah, I want to also say that when I think about email, I think about email as a vessel to get to a conversation, right? You're not going to close a deal 100% over email. If you do, congratulations. That's very, very rare. But I think most of us are trying to get to a conversation where we can have a call over the phone, have a Zoom call, and really, really be compelling with our case to add value to whatever specific strategy it is we're trying to communicate. But when you think about this, kind of tying it all together, I think it's really important to address the pain point, give some social proof, and try to move them to a conversation as fast as possible to help accelerate your deal cycle. So, Hannah, I don't know if you have any insight into ways this might have worked for you in the past, but it'd be great to hear kind of boots on the ground, what you kind of went through with this.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So, like Mike said, you want to act like you know the business better than the prospect. So, using video adds a further fold of personalization, but using industry jargon in the video, pointing out the pain point, like he said, usually ours is forms, and offering a very relevant solution is something that will really help. Because if you're pointing out the form and then you're offering a solution that isn't that relevant to the prospect, this won't really provide much value to them. But a lot of times they'll know that they have the pain. They're too busy, or they don't have enough people to solve for it. So if you're sending them a video where they don't have to read a long worded email, and they can just see right then and there a walkthrough of their buyer's journey, and then get a solution, a social proof, like Mike said. I had so many people respond to me and being like, oh, we've been trying to solve for this forever. We don't really know how. We'd love, and if you see at the bottom, we offer, instead of going straight to the meeting ask, which sometimes can be a little bit straightforward, we offer a mock-up of Drift. They'll oftentimes respond to the video. Well, we'd love to see a Drift mock-up. We'd love to see Drift on our site, things like that. So just providing a solution, a physical solution, showing them how Drift can help has done wonders in the past for me. That's usually the biggest way to book a meeting, is then they'll ask for Drift on their site. I can make another video walking through Drift on the site and then asking for the meeting and things like that. So, and there's also a fine line, I would say, between pointing out a pain and kind of ridiculing their business. You don't want to go in and say, oh, this form isn't going to work and things like that. So you just want to make sure you're being respectful of their website, of their buyer's journey in our case, and then offering a solution on how they can help, just so they don't think, like my manager would always say, that you're not calling their baby ugly. It's definitely a thin line, but this is definitely a very effective email play, I would say.
Absolutely, Hannah. And I think, before we move on, I think thinking about leading with value is really important. Like Hannah called out a really good point that, like, let's say this was your first email out to a prospect. Don't immediately ask for the meeting, right? Like try and give them some type of value up front, have them feel it out, see if they open the email. And then if you know that they opened it, maybe they clicked through it, maybe they watched a video, if you're able to track that, like we can through Drift Video, then you can come in and ask for the meeting, right? But you want to lead with value and make it worth their while, because it's basic kind of human negotiation, where if you can offer something, then you at least have the ability and you've like earned the right to ask for something in return. But if you're just kind of going one way, banging on the door, asking for a meeting, that'll work maybe 1 to 2% of the time, right? But like show that you're a trusted advisor. There's this term that you try to establish with your prospect, that you become a trusted advisor in the space. So like, for example, with Drift, if somebody's new into a VP of marketing role or CMO role and they've never used Drift before, right? Like one thing I would advocate for is to be a trusted advisor, offer them some resources on conversational marketing, really help build that relationship so you are the person that if and when they decide to look into something, you're the first person they come to because you've been so supportive in that case. Like, that's true relationship building and selling. And I mean, leading with value, becoming that trusted advisor is absolutely critical. So I can't express that enough. Over email, if you want to build a true relationship that you can effectively sell in, that's absolutely critical. So the social influencer play, this is a really, really nice play that's blown up over the last couple of years because LinkedIn has seen an increase in people engaging and creating content, especially individuals creating content, building their own brand. To me, this is essentially like an ego play, right? Now, the question's going to come up, what if they aren't active on LinkedIn? We'll talk about that here in a second. But I think one thing to really double down on is if you know somebody's active on LinkedIn, you want to connect with them. Now, there's a huge debate over should you add a note or should you not add a note, right? I think probably a year or two ago, I would say 100% add a note. These days, I probably wouldn't add a note because it's going to expose you that you're just going to immediately connect and then you're going to immediately start selling to them, right? If I see that stuff today, typically I won't accept that connection, right? So I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of connection requests without notes now, so I'm kind of doomed. But I wouldn't add a note just yet, or maybe just say, hey, happy to connect, something nice, maybe call out something specific, maybe where they went to school or some commonality or connection that you guys have, first level connection, second level connection. I think that's good. But connect with the person on LinkedIn and engage with what they're doing. If they are posting a lot, like their post, maybe comment. This is great, right? It takes very little time on your end to start building that relationship, but what you'll end up reaping the rewards of is very, very great for that little amount of time that you're putting into it. Now, let's say they aren't active, right? Their business might be active. So you can look at what their business is engaging in, what they're posting, if they've had any recent launches. If you're using Sales Navigator, you can see if they've had an increase in employee headcount, which is congratulations. If they've had a decrease in employee headcount, right? You can lean into, hey, look, it looks like the company's gone a little bit leaner, right? You can wordsmith it and then say, we'd love to help you do more with less, right? And there's always angles that you can finesse it. But I think it's important for you to look at their social presence, whether it's personal or business-wise. If you're not necessarily engaging with them on LinkedIn, but you see something interesting, how this relates back to email, screenshot it, call it out, put it in the email and show exactly what you're referring to. I think that's really important to show that like you're actually doing your due diligence and you care about what the person is doing. One thing that I've seen work really well too is calling out recommendations. If somebody has a great recommendation from a former employee or boss, call that out, right? People hook me all the time. They'll call out a recommendation that I received in the subject line and then talk about it and then ask me a question and try to lead with value. I love seeing stuff like that. And it really helps me understand who's just kind of mass emailing me and who's going a little bit further and putting some effort and care into what they're doing. So I think that's really important. Let's take a look at an example. We can jump to the next slide. Right. And I like that these emails are short and sweet, right? Like no director, VP, CMO has time to sit down and read a lengthy email, right? Keep it short and sweet. Intro, body, call to action, what you're trying to accomplish. But I like this email because it links right to a LinkedIn post, which is cool. It says very interesting, which is a little generic. I might say why it's interesting, but not bad. And then it elaborates a little bit. What struck me the most was the reference to breaking through the noise of sales and using one-to-one conversations in B2B. I agree with that idea wholeheartedly, right? Are you open to taking a few minutes to talk through some of the ideas? So it's showing that you did your due diligence, you care about something specific that they wrote, you link back to it, and then your call to action is, bouncing some ideas, talking through some things, and then having a conversation. I really like the way that this is outlined. It's short and sweet. You can always do replies to this, and you could do a follow-up call and cite this and say, hey, I don't know if you saw my email where I linked a post on LinkedIn that I really liked. Would love to talk through this. I really like the way that this is structured. Hannah, I'm interested in your perspective on this one too.
Yeah. So like Mike said earlier, business leaders will get hundreds of emails a week. So it is really how are you breaking through the noise? And I think LinkedIn, social influencer play, stroking their ego is definitely a very effective way, just because a lot of people who are active on LinkedIn take a lot of pride in their LinkedIn bios, the posts they curate, the brands they build on LinkedIn. So it is something they'll appreciate if you call it out. Again, shows that you've done your research, shows you've taken time to outreach to them. You're not just mass emailing them. They're not just part of some list. They're special. So just definitely pointing things out that they've had in their bio is something I've used in the past, whether that be on email, even in a phone call. I'll point something out in their bio. I know some people think this is tired, but if they've gone to the same college as you can point that out, mention like the mascot in your email or something like that. But I do remember one time, like a year ago, and I still remember it. This one guy who I would say was a LinkedIn influencer. He posted all the time. He spent a lot of time on LinkedIn, and we've been going after their account for quite some time. So I was trying to dig further into my personalization in email. So I figured I would go through his LinkedIn since he was so active and proud of it. And his bio was probably like this long. I had to scroll to the end of it. But I remember at the end, there were 3 chicken emojis, and it said, if you've read this entire bio and you're trying to reach out to me, include these emojis somewhere in your email or something like that, or in your LinkedIn messaging. So I emailed him with the subject line of the 3 chicken emojis to prove that I've gone the extra mile. I've read through his LinkedIn bio, which wasn't short, and just done a lot of my due diligence on his LinkedIn and research and things like that. And he, almost an hour later, without even reading my email, he responded and said, I hadn't even read the rest of your email, and I'm agreeing to take a meeting with you just because I know you read my LinkedIn. So just going, like I just said, going the extra mile, and it ended up turning into an opportunity. So it is worth it just to point out that you really care about their LinkedIn, and they'll care about your outreach as well.
It's a great point. I was thinking back to an example. There's a couple examples where like hyper personalization over LinkedIn or referencing LinkedIn has worked. I'll give one story. There was a prospect that one of my SDRs was heavily trying to get over the course of multiple SDRs, right? I think we spent a year prospecting this person. And we noticed that there was recently a post where the prospect posted a picture and was holding her dog, right? And it said the dog's name. And I said, look, let's get crazy, right? Let's put the dog, like, let's say we're going to steal her dog if she doesn't take the meeting, right? And of course we added value, we did everything else, but like the subject line was like, we're going to steal Rocco, ... right? And then the email body said, look, we're not actually going to steal your dog, but we'd love to steal a few minutes of your time to have a conversation about this. We saw your recent post, excited for your promotion to, let's say, Chief Marketing Officer. Would love to talk about how we can be a trusted advisor and help you achieve your goals in the new year, right? And she responded back and took the meeting and ended up buying 6 months later, right? Like, it's all about being creative, being different, maybe stealing somebody's dog. I don't know, but you just got to think differently, right? One last example I'll give you is using video as well. I had a prospect. We were prospecting a popular theme park. I'm not going to say which one, at a previous company. And we were emailing, and nothing. And then I found out that one of my reps was going to Disney. Oh, I gave it away. Went to Disney, took a video at the Magic Kingdom, and then we sent them an email and said, hey, you know what would be greater than, or what would be more magical than being at the Magic Kingdom? A meeting with you, right? And we'd love to get some time on the calendar to see how we can help X, Y, and Z. Be creative, be different, break through the noise. And I think LinkedIn is low-hanging fruit to really leverage that type of content to really make a meeting move forward, not just the generic mass emails that most people are getting these days. All right, so the teamwork play. This is kind of similar to the pain point play, but I think, you're calling out the challenges of the different stakeholders, right? Now, I'll caution you guys, if you get too lengthy on like addressing potential objections, the email might become too heavy, too long, and it won't get read. But the example that we're going to talk through, I think is really nice. So we can actually jump through and talk about this. Now, a good stat to think about as we go to the next slide is that the number of folks that are involved in the decision-making process has increased, even in SMB and enterprise space. Like in the enterprise, it used to be like 5 to 10. Now it's like 10 to 20 different stakeholders are all having conversations before a solution gets purchased. So I think it's really important to show that you've done your due diligence, look up the different stakeholders and like call out that you know who they are and that you're willing to help them navigate that process. Now, I think it's also important as you get through deals to understand, do your champions and decision makers have experience buying software, right? And coaching them along on how they can do this, I think, is critical to getting a deal done, and really showing from even the get-go when you're prospecting over email or an email in general, calling these people out, that you know who they are and that you're willing to get basically on their level and communicate their pain points and needs and how your solution might be able to solve that. So I think that's big. And it all goes back to being that trusted advisor as early in the sales cycle as possible. It just makes the prospect more comfortable. And honestly, if the prospect is more comfortable with you, it doesn't matter if the other competitors that you're competing in the deal against are more expensive or, you know, might be a superior product. If they trust you and you can build that from the get-go and they feel good about working through the deal with you, it's very likely that you're going to be the VOC. I think that's really important to understand. So let's look through this, right? So this email calls out the different stakeholders, right? Like Michael Bennett and Mary are in charge of generating meetings for app links. Has drift been brought up in your discussions, right? This is priming the person so the next discussion that they have, they could bring it up. And then it calls out kind of a proof point, right? Increase meetings by 15%. Could you imagine something like this for your business? What would be the impact of something like this for your business? Great follow-up questions can be asked based on this email, which is really nice. And then just kind of bringing it back to the different stakeholders. Hannah, I don't know if you have too much experience looping this in, but I'm sure you did prospecting in the enterprise space. This was something you did all the time. If you want to talk through it.
For sure. I think this is similar to obviously a referral, just name dropping and pointing out that you've spoken to other people in the company who have thought that your solution is of somewhat value. Maybe they don't have the time to do all the research, go on the discovery calls, the demos and things like that, but proving to them that this hasn't just been passed over. And again, like Mike said, if there are someone like I'm a specialist now and someone came to me saying they spoke to one of my higher ups and this is a solution that could impress my higher ups and they proved to me how I could do so, I'm definitely always looking for a way to impress people that I work for. So if, like, I think at the bottom of the email, it says, if you could share 2 ideas with Michael that could provide more value in the next month, wouldn't you want to do that? So just showing them a way to prove their value as well as our value to maybe their boss's boss is definitely something that they'll take the bait on, that'll hook them in and things like that. But sometimes you want to be careful about name dropping, I would say, just because if you don't, I always ask permission for referral or a play like this. Can I include your name in the email? Because it can get sticky if you include a name and then it gets back to them and they didn't approve of you. You know what I mean? So it's just definitely ask permission before name dropping. And I think it's good to name drop right in the subject line because it'll catch attention, break through the noise, and things like that. If you have anything to say on that, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on like where you're emailing in the sales cycle, right? If it's prospecting up front, completely agree with you, Hannah. Like, don't email like, let's say you have a call with somebody, they reject you, and then you cite that call to their boss's boss, right? Like, I would advise against that strongly. However, like if you're in an open deal, right, and you've been talking to Rick, but you know Bob and Sarah are involved in the conversation, you can always ask, right? And if somebody ghosts you, this is a great way to get engagement and get the conversation flowing again. And you could write an email basically citing, hey, Bob, I know that, let's say Rick and Sarah are probably involved in the decision-making process when it comes to assessing X, Y, and Z solution. Can you let me know if there's anything that they could possibly need, right? And like that basically is using psychology to say, hey, I know these 2 people are probably involved in the process. And the prospect could assume, okay, if I don't respond back, they could end up reaching out to them. I'm the point of contact. They could respond back and say, yeah, I need some help communicating with them, or say, no, I'm the point of contact. Let's get something on the books next week to pick up from where we left off. There's all different ways of kind of leveraging, using that kind of like team strategy, but just, you know, be pleasantly persistent, always ask for that permission. And most of the time people are going to engage with you, because if they're not going to engage with you, they're probably not going to be a good customer and they're probably not going to buy. So I think addressing it, identifying stakeholders, being a trusted advisor to help get everybody on the same page and speak everyone's specific language to get the deal across, I think is absolutely critical, whether you're trying to land a first discovery meeting or you're trying to land a deal. So all good stuff. All right, the competitor play, right? This is like the big FOMO play, fear of missing out, right? Companies want to look like their competitors. If you're if you're the leader in the space, or you want to be the leader in the space, you're constantly kind of monitoring the market to see what your competitors are doing. And Google kind of pioneered this back in the day with a lookalike strategy when it came to like SEO and marketing. And simple SEO searches on Google can help identify competitors, right? Because they run ads against it, and you can include that in emails. But competition is absolutely fierce these days, and businesses are having to prioritize vendors that make the biggest impact. And I think when you're trying to communicate, like calling out, especially if you're working with competitors of who you're trying to prospect, I mean, that's gold. But just getting ahead of the competition. If they're using maybe a competitor of yours, you can call out and say, look, if you were to implement us, we might be able to help you increase X, Y, and Z and drive these positive business outcomes. So let's try and look through an example and talk about it a little bit. And go to the next slide. All right. So this is pretty cool. I like the way that this is structured because it's fragmented, right? In the subject line, it's almost like kind of clickbaity, but it's leading to a result, right? So the subject line was, I started searching for best native app developers, ... And then it finishes in the actual body of the email. And I got 1.4 million results, Nate. Some of the top results include Acme and White Whale, which are competitors of who are emailing in this case. And guess what they have in common, right? And there's a screenshot of a chat, whether that's Drift chat or a competitor's chat. In this situation, it doesn't really matter. Just showing, at least in Drift, they're using chat. The person that we're prospecting is not. Don't you want to be like your competitors? Why wouldn't you want to have that line of communication open to book more meetings and accelerate deals and have more conversations, right? So using competition, using social proof is a great way to structure an email, and just keep it super simple and just say, we'd love to do a side-by-side comparison to see how you can stand out compared to your competitors while using X, Y, and Z solution. I think that's really critical. Hannah, anything you want to add on to this one?
Yeah, I think this is definitely, besides the pain point, this is definitely one of the bigger plays, just because, like you said, it lends a lot of credibility to your outreach and your research and things like that. You want to make sure, though, that they are very solid, relevant competitors, or else it won't really provide any value to them. So I would recommend making an Excel spreadsheet. This is what some of the SDRs and I had, with the industry, and then underneath just current customers that you can frequently reference, just so you know. Sometimes it takes a while to research competitors, and people will stray from adding competitors just because they don't feel like doing the research. So having them at a quick glance and things like that, because I definitely think this is a play worth using almost on every sequence. I have a funny story. My dad, I don't know, I told him to join this, so I don't know if he's on here, but he is a CRO at a company in Boston, and he'll often get emails and cold calls and things like that. And he said if the SDR isn't name dropping a competitor and things like that, he won't even consider it because it provides no value to him. So that, he said, when I started working as an SDR, competitor, 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 it shows that you've done your research, and almost like Mike said, the FOMO aspect, it incites a little bit of fear in the prospects, like, oh, my competitor has this, like, why aren't we using it, and things like that. So it almost adds a little urgency to meet with you. They can gain a competitive advantage, keep up, they don't want to fall behind. So keeping up with the competition and obviously excelling forward is everyone's goal. So if they can use Drift or whatever platform to do that, then they'll probably take a meeting with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So those are just kind of like a brief overview. I definitely want to jump into Q&A because I know that there were a bunch of questions in the chat.
Let's see, one of the questions that was dropped was, do you think there's a benefit to writing what someone said on LinkedIn in the email versus just linking to it? This person was referring to phishing risks.
Hannah, do you want to take that first one? Your perspective on it?
Yeah. I would honestly just write a couple things, because you don't have to link the entire. Is this referring to like a post that I'm assuming like a post, or maybe something in their bio? I don't know. I just think referencing quick little tidbits so that your email isn't too long. They don't have to click a link in order to see what you're sending them, just so it's obvious right there. I think that would be how I would do it. I don't know if you have a different opinion, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, there's three options, right? One, you could take a screenshot and put it in the email. Two, you can link the post in text. Or three, you can write out what was said or quote it in the actual email itself. I think the question's really around, like, if you put large images in emails, is it going to be taken out by phishing? It depends, right? If the industry that you're selling into is government, where they have strong firewalls and things like that, or just like the public sector, it's probably going to get caught up, right? I don't know, but I would give it a try. What's the worst thing that could happen? On the next email you don't include an image? I think you got to try different kind of pieces. Like, you could reply, like, let's say you started the email with like just text, and maybe in that text that you cite, you link back to the post. Maybe they don't respond. Maybe you reply to that email with a reply email and you put a picture of the post in and give it a try that way. I don't know. I think there's different ways to mix it up, and it really depends on the industry that you're selling into. Some are going to have stronger firewalls, some aren't, but it's worth a try any which way, because most emails, as anybody knows in sales, unless you're in an active deal cycle where they're very willing to engage, a lot of our emails get ignored, right? And the whole goal here is to kind of break through the noise, write a creative email that calls out pain points, team plays, LinkedIn posts, competitors, and just be a little bit different than your generic email that you normally send. I think that's important. So I would give it a try and see. We don't run into it as much with like phishing and stuff like that, but again, there's different options. You don't necessarily have to include a screenshot. You can just post the text, or you can link back to the post. But I would call it out in the subject line and then finish your statement in the body. That way, the whole purpose of a subject line is just to get them to open the email, and the whole purpose of the email is to get them to respond. So as long as you're achieving those rates, I think that's important. I'll give you a couple statistics. Open rates, and I think I can get ahead of a question that I saw. Open rates, if you're averaging between 25 and 45% open rates, you're in a good situation. Best in class is like above 45% on open rates, like real opens, not like spam filters triggering open rates to be high, just real genuine opens. I've seen open rates on videos, like maybe the subject line is like, recorded this video for you, or like video for prospect's name, and then in the body just link the video. I've seen open rates above 60 to 80%, right? So like, people naturally are like, what is this? And they want to open it up. And if, again, shameless plug for Drift, if you're using that video, it links it back. And then if they're actually watching the video, you can engage with them in real time over chat, which is incredible. And we see lots of leverage there. But with open rates that high, it's like, it's crazy that people don't use video more. But, the superior salespeople are going to use it and have much better open rates than those that don't, right? So I hope that answers that question too, around video open rates and what we see there.
Awesome. I'm going to move forward to the next question. This one's a fun one. Have you ever experimented with writing emails using Chat GPT?
Can you elaborate on that, Hannah? Do you know what they mean by
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, the new it's like the new AI website that kind of blew up. But I wrote some, so now I'm in charge of writing some sequences, and I have put them through Chat GPT. It's really cool, but I haven't sent any yet, so I don't know the results. But it is like, it's a great place for, they allegedly write like the best email based on the information you give them, and it also will kind of cut the fluff and correct your grammar and things like that. So I think it's really cool, and might as well take advantage of it while it's free. I'm not sure if it'll cost money soon, but it's definitely a cool tool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
No comment on me from that, other than like, if it test it, if it works, use it, because this is the way kind of things go, right? Like, a new thing will come out, the first few that actually leverage it, like, they'll get a lot of return from it, but then everybody starts doing it, and the person that's going to be the next best, most successful is the person that does something different, right? So like, as the pendulum shifts, and we saw this with calls and emails, right? Like, cold calling was king, and then everybody started emailing. And then once COVID hit, nobody was at a desk phone, nobody was calling, so everybody was on emails. So those that shifted back to calling were superior when it came to booking meetings. Then it shifted back, and the pendulum constantly swings. The goal is to be ahead of that pendulum and think differently. Now with email, I think it's always going to be there. It's a staple. breaking out from the rest. I mean, even calling out that you wrote this message with AI, I think would be interesting and would catch people's eye. It would catch my eye at this point. So, but that's probably very, very short lived, right? All of this is ephemeral stuff. It's gonna fade out.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question here. Billy Walker asks, can you compare and contrast personalization and low volume versus high volume outbound emails? Really just want to know, like, what's the right balance there?
It depends what and who you're prospecting, right? If you're in the enterprise space and your total addressable market as an SDR for the accounts that you work is like 200 accounts for the year, like lower, super high quality touches are absolutely critical so you don't burn out your 200 accounts and are kind of doomed, you know? So I think it really, there's no silver bullet in anything that we're talking about right now. I believe in a mixed balance, right? So like, let's say you're a salesperson, doesn't matter if you're a closer or you're an SDR, right? Like you have your top accounts, which might be like 25%. Then you have like these medium kind of accounts, we'll call them medium accounts, high accounts being that top 25%, and then the remainder. It's almost like I use the analogy of a tube of toothpaste. You have to be rolling from the bottom up to create, you know, future hot accounts, future medium accounts, and you got to work through this. So I would focus on your top 25 accounts, leveraging strategic people in your business, whether that's a CRO, a CMO, maybe lookalike personas that you're prospecting that you actually know. Really, really double down on that for the top 25%. The medium, a little bit more quantity over quality, like try to call out some specific things. If you're using tools like SalesLoft or Outreach, maybe you have out of the 5 or 6 emails in a sequence, maybe 2 or 3 of them are manual, the other 3 are automated. And then the like C accounts that you just kind of want to keep warm and you want to be on the radar, high touch, low effort. But eventually the goal is to move them up, right? As like the cold accounts move to medium, right? They want to engage with more marketing stuff. You want to invite them to webinars and heat them up. That way, when you sell or you kind of mark accounts out for the year on your top hot accounts, you have something to pull from and you're constantly pulling these accounts up. That's really, really important. But I would say it really depends on your quotas. It depends on how much pipeline you need. It depends on so many different things. But I'll tell you, like, regardless, it's not one or the other. And I feel like there's a lot of noise around quality over quantity, or quantity with a little bit of, you know, a little bit of quality. It's all over the place. And again, it really depends on your industry, it depends on your accounts, it depends on your TAM, and it's a case by case basis. I mean, Hannah, how did you think about this when you were kind of breaking it out?
Yeah, so I was in the enterprise space, so I would be reaching out to more like CMOs, people like that. So I would definitely use personalization with them. But if I was really going after an account that I, like Mike said, like maybe a medium account or an account I really couldn't get into contact with, then I would start firing off automated, less personalized emails to ICs, sometimes even other SDRs, just to even get some sort of conversation going. So I feel like the higher up the person, the more personalization you use. But I definitely think that I've booked some meetings over completely automated email sequences. So like just a mix, like Mike said, I agree.
Next question. LinkedIn research often feels tedious. Any tips for streamlining that process?
It is tedious. It depends, honest, like I just said, in the enterprise space, if it was someone I really, really wanted to speak to, those are the type of people I would take more time researching and things like that. But if you're just if you're trying to prospect as many people as you can and streamline the process, I would go right for the bio, because I think we talked about it earlier. Sometimes I would talk about their posts, their likes, things like their references, Mike said. But the quickest way to make a point is going straight for the bio. It's right there. It's usually pretty short. So I would say that would be my tip. And then if you wanted to go in deeper, that's when I would use the other avenues I just mentioned.
Yeah, I think it's having a plan, right? Like know where you're going. So for me, if I was to start making cold calls right now and I was going to use LinkedIn to write an email, I would follow this, right? First thing I would look at is activity. So see if they've been posting, see if they've been liking, and see if there's anything there. If not, I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to go right to their bio, like Hannah said. I'm going to see if they have things like progressive leader or, innovative or anything like that, which would deem that they should be looking at solutions and tools that can make them more innovative and potentially using your product. The other thing I look at is growth, right? Have they had growth within the organization that they're at? Have they had promotions? Have they spent, time jumping and growing very, very quickly? Call that out. And the last thing that's very valuable is if they have any recommendations or given recommendations. Those are it. So activity, bio, growth, promotions, and then recommendations, and then move on. Make it super simple. And I would template your emails, right? Because a lot of these, you don't have to reinvent an email every single time. If you write a really good email, right, save that thing and then interchange it and share it with other people on the team. I can't express, not one person on this call is going to get their business across the line just hoarding tips and knowledge. Share it with your people, and it's amazing the return you get and the good sales karma, I call it. It'll come back tenfold.
Axel asked, when it comes to the CTA, how important is it? Should we push for meetings on the first contact, or when is the right time there?
Yeah, I can take this one. I think it depends, right? If it's total cold outreach, your first time ever sending anything to anybody at a company, don't immediately ask for the meeting, right? Introduce yourself, build your brand. Say, hey, this is Mike from Drift. I, just want to get on your radar. People are really, really looking into conversational marketing these days when they have to do a lot more with a lot less. Would love to be a trusted resource. Here's a report on the state of conversations in 2022. Think this might be helpful. Please let me know if you have any questions, right? Try to give them a call, maybe connect over LinkedIn, and then maybe a week later, I start leading with value, but then asking for something in return because I believe X, Y, and Z I can do for their business, right? So I would start a little bit softer. Now, if they've come inbound, if they're engaging with the business, if they previously had a conversation, I think it's still important to lead with value, but call to action in an email is so critically important. Nothing grinds my gears more than a world-class email. And I get these a lot where the email is great, personalization is incredible, and then the call to action is would it make sense to talk? I don't know. You emailed me. You tell me if it makes sense to talk, right? Can you improve my business, or what are we doing here? I don't have time for that. So many great emails fail to have a good call to action at the end. And make it simple. Pick a day. Make it easy for me to look at my calendar and look at a day and 2 times and just pick it versus would it make sense to talk? I don't want to think. I just want to say, yep, this sounds like it could change my business for the better. Let's do it. And yeah, I think that's important without me going on a total tirade on that. But yeah, I don't know.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. We'll close it out with one last question here. Juan asked, what is the best way to track personalized outreach? Do you use a CRM, or are there any other tools that you recommend?
I mean, there's a tool for everything these days, right? There's lots of different ways to track the way that you're sending emails, open rates, reply rates, right? Personalization is personalization, right? So personalization to one person isn't necessarily congruent to personalization to another. So it's hard to track the success of personalization, right? But I think overall structures of emails, subject lines, you can track open rates, click-through rates, reply rates. For me, at its core, I look at open rates, right? Are they at least looking at what we're sending them? Right? Because then you have leverage. You can get on the phone and say, hey, I noticed you opened up my email, want to talk through X, Y, and Z. And that used to be kind of taboo. Now it's come on, everybody knows that we're able to see if you open up an email or not. I look at open rates and I look at reply rates, and the personalization within emails can sometimes be, transferred and be reused, but personalization is just that, right? That's what makes it so difficult and so, I guess successful when it comes to a return, because if you take the time and personalize one and you personalize the other, when you try to replicate personalization, it starts to become generic, right? So that's a very difficult part of this, but I hope, honestly, to kind of cap off, I hope that these kind of themes around these emails, I mean, honestly, you could create a sequence just based on these, and we have a resource that we're going to talk about here in a second, but you could build a whole sequence out with some of these emails, keep them short, sweet, to the point, have a strong call to action, Somebody asked about subject lines. Keep your subject line short, 4 words or less. Put their names in it. Maybe, you know, all lowercase to kind of deceive them, where it's like not perfectly polished, right? Questions in your subject lines. That's always very, very beneficial. But I think naturally, just like I can bloviate and talk a lot, I think we want to write a lot in emails. And I would suggest everybody write an email, cut it in half. Subject line, make it shorter and make it easier for people to respond and just get hooked as quickly as possible. Because the whole goal is to not sell your product over email. The goal is to plant a seed of doubt in their mind that they could be doing something better and that you are the person that they should be discussing it with. So I'll kind of leave it at that, but all really, really, really strong questions, and everybody seems to be thinking the right way about this stuff. So hopefully we see some more emails, and I'm sure some people are going to be prospecting me with the tips that I gave now. So we can give a shout out to Drift. Obviously, we've been talking about it here for a minute, but we actually just released this 10 cold email templates that your SDR should steal. You should absolutely steal these. Have the link right there. You can download them. I know we're probably going to share out the link, or maybe you've already got it in the chat, Elliot. So I hope you guys share this, disseminate it, use it as a foundation and build on it. But you know, anything to help people sell, we're here to do that.